Think there was a place on Earth where a titan-sized dinosaur would have been the prey. Where the undisputed rulers of the land fell from the sky. For 160 million years, dinosaurs dominated every continent on this planet. Every forest. Every plain. Every swamp. They were the unchallenged architects of terrestrial life. Except on one island. Where they ruled nothing. Hatzeg Island. A volcanic archipelago in the ancient Tethys Sea. A place where titanosaurs, normally the largest animals to ever walk the earth, shrank to the weight of horses. Where the apex predator was not a dinosaur at all. It was a flying reptile. A pterosaur with a 12-meter wingspan. Wider than an F-35 fighter jet. And it did not hunt from the air. It stalked on all fours. Like a giraffe made of nightmares. And it bludgeoned dwarf dinosaurs to death with a skull the length of a fully grown horse. How did an isolated patch of land completely invert the biological hierarchy? How did evolution compress giants into miniatures and elevate a flying reptile into a terrestrial executioner? The answer lies in the anatomy of the island's apex predator. The Hatzegopteryx. A creature so alien to our understanding of prehistoric life that paleontologists initially refused to believe it could exist. Its skull was not built for feeding. It was built for impact. 2.5 meters of reinforced bone, designed to absorb forces that would shatter a rhino's horn. And the fossil record tells us something disturbing. That skull was covered in healed fractures. Evidence of repeated blunt force collisions that would have killed any other predator. This was not a scavenger. This was not an opportunist. This was a biological weapon. And it was engineered for one purpose, to destroy miniature dinosaurs on a prison island with no escape. But the skull was just the beginning of its arsenal. The neck of the Hatzegopteryx functioned like a hydraulic pile driver. Reinforced cervical vertebrae wrapped in roped ligaments that could absorb and redirect kinetic energy at magnitudes 10 times the creature's own body weight. When this predator struck, it did not bite. It hammered. A controlled, vertical impact delivered with the precision of industrial machinery. The skull was not a jaw. It was a battering ram mounted on a shock-absorbing chassis. Consider the scale. The head alone measured 2.5 meters. The wingspan stretched 12 meters tip to tip. Standing on all fours, this creature would have looked down at a modern giraffe. And unlike any predator you have encountered in the fossil record, it did not chase its prey. It walked toward them. Slowly. Inevitably. There was no outrunning it. The dwarf titanosaurs, reduced to the size of ponies by millions of years of caloric starvation, could not flee fast enough. They could not hide. And they could not fight back. The Hatzegopteryx saw everything. Through giant sclerotic rings, bony plates reinforcing its massive eyes, this predator processed ultra-sharp, high-contrast visual data through dense Cretaceous vegetation. Organic sniper optics calibrated to detect motion in shadow. To the dwarf dinosaurs huddling beneath the volcanic canopy, there was no such thing as concealment. The predator's vision penetrated their hiding places like thermal imaging cutting through darkness. And if they could not see it, they could hear it. The rhythmic thud of a giraffe-sized avian stalking on all fours. The scrape of wing claws against volcanic soil. The horrific snapping of a beak built to crush bone echoing through the dry woodland heat. Zoom out from this single predator to the island itself. A more terrifying pattern emerges. The Hatzegopteryx did not simply hunt. It vaulted. To achieve flight, biomechanical modeling suggests this creature executed a quadrupedal ballistic launch, pushing off its massive forelimbs like coiled springs to catapult its grizzly bear-sized mass 8 feet straight into the air. 300% higher than the average NBA player. From a standing start. This was not a clumsy takeoff. This was a controlled detonation. The forelimbs stored elastic energy in tendons and ligaments, then released it in a single explosive thrust against the ground. The creature did not run to build speed. It launched vertically, deployed its fighter jet wings, and became airborne in under 2 seconds. A predator that could stalk you on the ground. And intercept you from the sky. But the question remains. How did this biological nightmare come to dominate an island of shrunken dinosaurs? The answer was not in the predator. It was in the prison. Hatzeg Island operated like a ruthless compression algorithm. Limited caloric bandwidth. Finite resources. No immigration. No escape. The titanosaurs, descended from continent-spanning giants, had no choice but to shrink. Generation after generation, natural selection stripped away their biological mass. What remained were ponies where buildings should have stood. This is insular dwarfism. An evolutionary process that compresses large animals into miniature versions of themselves just to survive. But the same isolation that shrank the dinosaurs created something else. An ecological vacuum. On the mainland, large theropods, the tyrannosaurs, the carnosaurs occupied the apex predator niche. On Hatzeg Island, they never arrived. The Tethys Sea saw to that. The Hatzegopteryx did not compete for the throne. It monopolized an empty market. This is insular gigantism operating in reverse. A flying reptile, normally constrained by aerial competition, suddenly had no rivals. No theropods to contest territory. No larger predators to fear. The island handed it the crown. And the Hatzegopteryx evolved into a terrestrial executioner to claim it. The Tethys Sea was not just water. It was an impenetrable moat of deep, predator-infested ocean that locked every terrestrial animal in an inescapable pressure cooker. The island had its own aquatic prison guards. The surrounding shallow waters possessed the highest diversity of mosasaurs on Earth, including specimens the size of baleen whales, ensuring absolutely nothing could swim to safety. The dwarf dinosaurs were trapped. The pterosaurs were trapped. Every organism on that volcanic archipelago was serving a life sentence with no possibility of parole. The claustrophobic, dry woodland heat smothered everything. Thick, suffocating layers of volcanic ash baked under the Cretaceous sun. The air itself was a prison. Heavy. Humid. Inescapable. And this ecosystem endured for 24 million years. Volcanic eruptions buried the forests in ash. The dwarf dinosaurs repopulate. The pterosaurs returned to hunt them. The cycle repeated. Again. And again. For epochs longer than the entire existence of modern humans. Only the asteroid broke the loop. The KPG impact and a 30-foot tsunami that followed finally shattered the prison walls. Not evolution. Not adaptation. Only extinction-level violence could end what Hatzeg Island had built. But here is what the fossil record cannot tell us. Whether Hatzeg Island was an anomaly. Or a template. We view dinosaurs as the ultimate masters of their domain. Hatzeg Island proves nature has no loyalty to kings. Given the right geographical pressures, evolution will dethrone a giant and hand the crown to whatever organism is willing to claim it. We assume the biological hierarchy is fixed. That apex predators are guaranteed their position by their family tree. That size determines dominance. That flight disqualifies terrestrial rule. Hatzeg Island proves that isolation rewrites the rulebook entirely. Consider the scarred skull of the Hatzegopteryx once more. In the beginning, it was evidence of brutality. A predator so violent it repeatedly fractured its own skull in the act of killing. Now it stands as something else. A grim monument to the island's ruthless economy. A biological weapon forged not by choice, but by the desperate, inescapable prison of the surrounding Tethys Sea. The Hatzegopteryx did not choose to become a monster. The island made it one. Paleontologists initially misidentified a small local dinosaur, Bradykneme, as a 6-foot-tall giant owl. Because the proportions of the island's animals were so utterly bizarre and unreadable that modern science could not categorize them. We struggle to comprehend what isolation built 66 million years ago. And yet isolation continues to build. Deep ocean trenches sealed from sunlight for millennia. Remote island chains where no human has walked. Caves locked beneath the earth for millions of years. These places exist now. On our planet. In our time, if a few million years of isolation can turn the world's mightiest dinosaurs into helpless, miniature prey, if it can elevate a flying reptile into a ground-stalking executioner, what strange, unrecognizable monsters is isolation creating right now in the unseen, unexplored corners of our own world?